FNCS qualifiers are now over. We know who is continuing FNCS and whose season is over. We have huge names like SypherPK almost qualifying this week, but we also have one of the weirdest situations I've ever seen. Mero, the global champ, one of the best players in the world, just potentially got disqualified from FNCS for switching teammates. It's one of the weirdest situations I've ever seen. It's all because of a rule no one knew existed, and I want to explain exactly what went down and what's happening with FNCS. All right, let's kick off talking about why Mero and a whole bunch of top tier pros on NA now might be disqualified from FNCS. Now, this might get confusing, but I'll do my best to explain it. In case you guys didn't see my last video, a whole bunch of tier 1 teams on NA all split up right before week 2. Kind of stupid, a lot of people question it, but most people thought that if they split up with their teammate from week 1, that would void their placement in week 1 and would only give them 1 week to qualify for FNCS. Kind of stupid, a lot of people question it, but a lot of these teams went on to do really well. As of today, a new rule was discovered in the rules that says that if they didn't outplace their old teammates' placements, they would have to be forced to go and play with their old teammates. So I'll use the example of Mero and Aviv, right? Mero and Aviv played week 1 together. They came 46th. Mero and Dukes would have to then place better than that, but so would Aviv and Chubbs. Both new teams would have to place better than their old team, otherwise they would be forced to go back and play together. But it gets even worse. If your team doesn't outplace the previous team, you actually get disqualified. So we now have a situation where certain teammates have outplaced their old teams and they can then play with the new team. We have some situations where they haven't outplaced their old team, so they are forced to go play with their old teammates, but that means the players who had a teammate who outplaced them and their other teammate outplaced their old teammate means they're disqualified. I'm sorry that's really confusing, but it is absolutely as ridiculous as it sounds. So at this point, it looks like after all these teams now snaked each other, a bunch of them are either going to have to be forced to play with a teammate that they dropped without telling them until the day of FNCS, or they're just disqualified and they can't even play FNCS. If you're looking for me to tell you exactly who qualified and who didn't, I can't. The rule is so unbelievably confusing, it's really hard to figure out exactly how Epic is going to administer it. I am honestly on the side of thinking they're probably just going to avoid everyone's original placements and start as if they're a new duo fresh from week 2 like everyone was expecting. Because if they do that, every single person who played with a new duo actually did qualify in a single week. They ended up making semifinals. The only reason why they wouldn't be able to play in semifinals is if Epic tries to enforce this old rule. But a lot of people are saying that it's in the rule book. Not only that, Epic actually updated the rules to add extra words to it from last season. So it looks like they have every intention of actually administering this rule and disqualifying players. So I don't actually know how this is going to play out. Semifinals isn't for another 2 weeks now. There's a bye week. There's a break in the middle of FNCS. I usually assume that's because Epic wants to go through and check the leaderboards, ban the cheaters, and potentially sort out issues like this. So I don't know how long it's going to take for us to find out exactly what happens here. I actually jumped into a call with a few of the pros involved in this. I jumped in a call with Mero and Quanti, and both of them basically said they actually think we should all just be disqualified. Like, this situation is so ugly. It's probably just what we get for snaking our teammates and causing all of this mid FNCS. And I asked them, did any of them actually try to read the rules before doing this? And they said no. So at this point, I don't know what's going to happen, but either option is honestly quite hilarious. It's just a bunch of drama, which is kind of why we watch Fortnite. All right, let's go through the rest of the duos who we know qualified and some that didn't. In case you guys missed it, we almost had an absolutely Cinderella legendary run from none other than SypherPK in FNCS this week. He was playing alongside Noah W plays. Unfortunately, the duo didn't make it out of round 1 last week. They had a really unfortunate last game, which meant they needed to get top 150 in this week for a chance to play in semifinals. It got to round 2 and they were 2 placements off qualifying. 1 single point was why they couldn't play round 3. But they then ended up managing to find 2 cheaters in the top 1,000. SypherPK going through all of the VODs, watching, kind of trying to find some suspicious people, and then reporting them. They actually managed to get banned, but it took an extra half an hour after the tournament started. So SypherPK and Noah W plays queued up last minute with only 2.5 hours to go and almost pulled off the qualification. Unfortunately, they weren't able to get enough points. They needed a few more points in their last game to go on to round 4, and SypherPK's FNCS ended. But it was so exciting to to watch it all break down. People were a little bit upset with the whole, oh man, it's just because it's PK, he got people banned. If it wasn't PK, no one would have done anything. And I don't know how that situation goes. PK was doing his best to make sure that the players they were reporting were very clearly cheaters, and he made that very, very clear. He was watching a lot of gameplay before he pointed the finger, and then all he did was report them in-game or use the Epic player support to see if they could get them banned. He wasn't like making calls to Donald Mustard to get people banned. It wasn't anything like that, but it was a crazy, crazy run that almost ended in insanity. But we do have some huge OG names making it to semifinals. Nate Hill, yes. FaZe Nate Hill, original Summer Skirmish Pro, actually just qualified for FNCS semifinals in 2024. He's made it straight through 2 semis. Other huge names who needed to clutch it up in the last week, like Moneymaker, like Day, and all the other pros I've talked about in recent videos, it looks like they've all managed to do it. But in case you're confused and if you can check who actually qualified, all you have to do is go to kinchanalytics.com/FNCS. I'll link in the description down below. You can go there, check on the region you want. If a team is in the top 250, that means they're in semifinals. If they're in the top 50, they're in the upper bracket of semifinals. They are both the same thing. They are running at the same time. Upper bracket is just a set lobby that has a bit of an advantage over the lower bracket, but any team that's going into the lower bracket still has a chance of making grand finals, like Mr. Savage and Mongrel. Mr. Savage and Mongrel, after a fantastic week 1 of FNCS, unfortunately didn't play as well in week 2. They didn't actually make it to the final round, and a lot of people were panicking, thinking that's it, FNCS is over. Luckily, because they played so well in week 1, they already clutched up at top 50 to get into semifinals, but by struggling this week, they did toss their chance at the upper bracket. Now, Mongrel and Savage went through lower bracket last FNCS and still made it to grand finals. It's honestly not that big of a difference. I won't explain the whole semifinals FNCS format. I do have a whole YouTube video explaining the format here if you want to check it out in case you guys are confused. But basically, if a team goes through into semifinals, they have a very good chance of making grands, whether they're in upper or lower bracket. It's not that much of a disadvantage. I'm not going to break down all of the placements from round 4 because a lot of these teams are already qualified, but I do want to give a huge shout out to Vico and Pink, who actually managed to win the final round of both weeks of FNCS. They got 383 points today. They played absolutely phenomenal. For a duo that really struggles in the more open lobbies, like getting to round 1, they absolutely pop off once they get to those final rounds. We still haven't got a chance to see any set lobbies, and we won't get to see set lobbies until the semifinals, so we'll see whether that impacts these teams at all. A lot of people telling me that Peterbot and Pollo fell off. Why are they not on the top of the leaderboards? Aussie, why aren't you talking about Peterbot and Pollo? Grimgate is a very, very interesting situation. Opens, you probably tried to drop there in a tournament or ranked and had 15 other teams there. It has been impacting Peterbot and Pollo's performances a fair bit. They did easily clutch up upper bracket semifinals though. They ended up winning this round 4 on 452 points. So don't think just because you're not seeing Peterbot and Pollo at the top of the leaderboards means they've fallen off or they're washed or someone's contesting them. It's just not set lobbies. As soon as we get back to the set lobbies and semifinals, I fully expect Peterbot and Pollo to absolutely dominate again. If you guys want to see more of the crazy moments from FNCS, check out my second YouTube channel, Extra Antics. We're uploading a whole bunch of stream highlights there of all the best moments in case you want more FNCS content that I'm covering on this channel.